Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Even before we get started, I just want to tell you that he and I started a conversation before we got on the air here, talking about making a connection to whatever, higher being, God, universe, and his experiences and my experiences. And I'm like fired up and ready to go here. He's a transformational life coach. Very different than I think anything that you have experienced in the past. And we're going to experience some cool stuff today. Zen is here, and it's great to have you back, sir. How are you?
It's great to be here, Steve, and I'm really looking forward to this dive. And it's not going to be into a dive, it's going to be into a great flight.
And what we're going to do is give an example of what it's like to start a session with you, to work with you, kind of unpack all of that, the starting point. So, we all feel comfortable going there. I feel we weren't even planning on talking like we did, and we got in this whole conversation, which was fantastic. This is kind of an offshoot of it. But so when somebody comes to you, let's go to the beginning. They come to you because they're looking at their lives. They want to change their lives. They're feeling maybe out of sorts with things.
Mm-hmm. Bit constricted, right? Everybody wants to seek flow, right? Which is where everything, when you think about it, what do you ascribe in your thinking and feeling to the word balance, or even flow, or even greater harmony? How would you ascribe that feeling or sensation in your own life?
I don't have any of that.
Okay. So great place to start, because that's usually the foundation.
You think I'm kidding and being facetious?
No, I don't actually.
And it's funny because I always, growing up and even a couple of years ago, and I'm not really super religious or anything like that, but if you're in church and somebody says, "Peace be with you," peace be with you. And I'd be like, I don't know what that means. What are you talking about? Until you realize I need peace in my life. Now I get it. Now I know what they're talking about, which to me kind of transcends over to the balance and all of the stuff that we're talking about. Same kind of thing.
It does. And it's not necessarily effortless, because there is effort involved.
Yeah.
However, once that process begins and you see that those choice points are actually much easier than what you believe them to be, then there's massive progress really quick, and that extends throughout the rest of the course of our engagement and beyond, right? Because I set people up for life, not for short term, hey, come back and see me when you got, right?
What would you say you kind of give them the tools to navigate and kind of send them on their way, and
Sure.
now they know how to do this?
And I've been fortunate to have acquired those tools for my own investigation of life and reality and how I fit. And because mine, starting out orphan and adopted, I had a lot of questions, and that drove me inside. Well, most people don't have those kinds of questions because they know their family, right? And so that doesn't even come up until the mid-40s, when they're seeking some kind of greater connection, like you just mentioned, right? Where things just, I've been doing this for a while and it just doesn't feel good. Yep. I need a change, right?
I got
so
you.
We kind of start out with, what's the biggest challenge or obstacle that you're currently experiencing in your life, and how would you like to change it? How would you like to overcome it?
I have the answers there. They're personal, but I know the answers.
You feel vulnerable enough to share? Because I think this would really be helpful, because it's not dangerous, right? We're in a psychologically safe and intellectually humble environment here, where everything is sacred.
Yeah. For me, navigating a divorce. And all of that related to it.
Oh, that's a really tough one. So what do you think would be the best outcome for you of the process?
Again, this is very deeply personal here, so I there's only so much I can share, but
well, a sense or a feeling, or just kind of how your life is going with that effort. Doesn't have to be specific.
Harmony
Although
for
it's
all.
best if it is, right?
Harmony for all. You said the word harmony, and that fits in. Yeah.
And that's a lot of self-reflection. It's a lot of being present. It's a lot of not being triggered and knowing how to hit the pause button when you are,
True.
so that you can have a moment to take a breath and then ask yourself, okay, what's the best outcome of this situation and how can I facilitate that? And so it sets you to the side, right, from your own course of emotional trauma and turmoil and all the triggers of the divorce, because there's a lot in there. I know I've been through it, and it's excruciating. And yet there are ways out when you can step aside and just serve it rather than be defensive in it and try to, get your way. Right. Because
Understood. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the way is a bigger perception and perspective than fighting over stuff, right? Because that doesn't work. You want to have that harmony, especially when you got kids, right? They need to feel like, okay, mom and dad may not be able to get along or live together. They still love each other enough that they treat us the same, and there's really no difference in that relationship.
Totally agree. And unfortunately, you can't control other people.
No.
When I say control, sometimes you can't even reason with others, and that's here.
However, when you're in that, I'll call it heart space, right? Because you want to be unconditional in your service to the moment and love it as much as possible so that you can then receive the reciprocal love. And you will be amazed at the kind of difference the response is when you approach it differently.
How do you know in any situation how to approach it differently? How do you see a different side of it?
Sometimes you can do it by putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? There was a guy who said, don't judge, condemn, or criticize unless you can walk in the other person's shoes, right? Sure. It's hard for us to do that, and yet we can empathize with the other person because we know we're hurting, right? And that other person is hurting just as much. So feel free to acknowledge that in the process of hitting that pause button. Even just to, hey, I know we're both hurting in this place. You may be even hurting more than I do. I don't know. I just want to honor that. And what can we do together to show that friendship that we had, the love that existed, is still there, even though we realize that our specific personalities just can't do it, right? So there's no blame. There's just a recognition that, hey, we tried, didn't work. It's okay.
Easier said than done. In any situation, really.
Well, yes and no. When you begin, the easier said than done comes from resisting, right? You're afraid of what's going to happen because you don't know, right? You're trying something new. You have no idea what's going to happen. You've had this history of events, right? That's still very much present. However, when you think about things, your energy in the present is much bigger than in the past or the future. And most of us go through life thinking about the immediate past or immediate future. And so we lose perspective in the present. So by doing that, hitting the pause button, just reflecting, taking a breath, acknowledging that you're both in the same or similar place emotionally, and then offering an opportunity to, hey, what can we do to move this up? Because I care about you. I know you care about me. So what can we do?
Well, you bring up a great point, Zen, in any situation, and that is living in the moment. And if we don't live in the moment, like truly in the moment, the past usually brings on negativity, depression, many times.
And repeatability.
Exactly. And looking at the future, like you just said, we don't know what's going to happen. but that usually brings on for many anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah, because you're worried about things that aren't even going to take place. And I have a really good friend that started a great example, started a new job, um, very challenging. And the training wasn't good, and she's worried that she's not going to be able to support her family, single mom, right? And I said, don't worry about it. Just let it go. Just go with the flow. He goes, but I'm not performing the way they want. And then she's like about 3 weeks into this job. And she's worried about it. I said, what are you worrying about? If it doesn't work out, go get another one. There's many jobs out there.
Right.
And it turns out she made a decision that she's not going to worry about. I'm just going to do it. Whatever happens, happens. And then she gets an email that says, we really like what you're doing. Everything is working out well. I'm like, see, you worried for nothing. And
Right.
research does show that I think, and it's done like every couple of years, like 93%, I think that's the latest number. 93% of the things that we worry about never take.
Never happen.
You're worrying for nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. You're just beating yourself up
Yeah.
and maybe
So
taking.
if we can believe statistics, right, which they are semi-relative, right, we can at least acquiesce to the possibility that they're right and that those unrecognized fears or even recognized fears don't matter, right?
Mhm.
It's what do we desire and how willing are we to step into that moment and actually be it rather than just think about it. That's where, as we've talked before, right, where your being, that the three brain system, the gut, heart, and the head, then is operational. When you're in the past or the future, you're just sitting on top of your shoulders wondering which shoe's going to fall next.
Yeah. And you're not tapping into this thing that's inside. And
Right.
I had the conversation with my son last night about that. And he kind of a little bit fluffed it off. I'm like, that's been proven too. Your intuition. Think about what's going on inside of you. Get a moment and listen to it. There's a reason we're still here today. It's because of that. Back
Mm-hmm.
to the caveman times, they had an intuition. I better not make a left there because it could be a pterodactyl or whatever it might be. There's a reason that we're here because of that. But I feel that a lot of us don't. We don't listen
Well,
to
and our
it.
intuition grows with our experience,
Yes.
right? This is one of the things I get involved with really deeply with clients, and that's the difference between a belief system and an experience system.
Explain those.
A belief system is just that, right? They're these beliefs that you have, and most of them you carry about the past or the future, right? So you're carrying all of these beliefs, and some of them are cognitively dissonant.
Mm.
Not all, but probably quite a bit, 93%, according to what you just said.
Yeah.
Right. So then what do? Okay. You just you allow those to be. Fighting them doesn't do any good. You have to acknowledge that you authentically have these thoughts and feelings. You're not wrong. So don't judge yourself in that place, right? Because that's one of the things that's really a challenge is the self-deprecation and beating up on yourself. And that's the internal dialogue that happens, right? You got this stuff going on, and what does that support? Right? Staying out of the moment. That's what it supports.
Right. Just getting in the way.
Right.
Way.
So in that place, then, it kind of leads to the next question. If you could make one significant change in your life right now, what would it be and why?
Hmm. Um, Lots of different thoughts, and I'm trying to prioritize them to find the one that is most important. I would have to say take more time for me and self-care.
Excellent response, and far better than what I hoped you would offer, right? That being in the self-care, you've got to love yourself first. You can't be available to anyone else unless you fully embrace who you are.
I can honestly
Whatever
tell
that
you,
is.
I can honestly tell you, and for a lot of us, myself included, go years back, to say this almost feels like your ego gets in the way, or you just have this big head. But I'm going to tell you right now that I do love myself.
Yeah.
I've gotten to that point where it's like, yeah, you're a good guy. You offer a lot, and sometimes you care too
Well, you
much.
do, and our conversations have been great. I'll edify that for you
Thank you.
in this moment. You're welcome. So then taking that, where do you go with it? Right? We oftentimes are being projected upon that those kinds of thoughts and feelings are narcissistic. And they can be when they're unfiltered, right? When you find yourself, you get in that center, you find that empathic resonance with who you really are, it's not going to be ego laden. It's going to be what I call it. Here's the transition from ego to we go, right? Because you're not alone. And once you get that part of yourself, when you find that place of self-love, then you start getting the reciprocation from your outer world in a much different way. You don't have to be so clear in setting your boundaries. And that at the same time, you can be much clearer in setting your boundaries.
Do you find when somebody gets to that point where, yeah, they're good with themselves, genuinely, they're not just saying it, they're just like, I got other things I got to work on, or how I react to people around me in situations. But do you find that when somebody's there, that other things kind of fall into place a lot easier?
Absolutely. And why? Because you've shifted your frequency. Okay,
Yep.
now that may sound really new agey or
Not to me.
pseudoscience or something like that. However, you feel a difference, right? There's a sensation that you feel
Sure.
that's different in the present moment than it is in your obsession on past and future events. And it is an obsession because that's usually correct, that 93%. Again, that's a huge number. So how do you mitigate that? Well, you hit the pause button first. And as I, mentioned earlier, there's a really simple technique of putting your fingertips together and just focusing on your breathing and feeling your heartbeat in your fingertips. Now, what that tends to do is it gets you out of your brain, not necessarily out of your mind, because your mind's much larger. However, it gets you out of your brain and your thinking and gets you back into your feeling. So in that place of feeling, then you ask better questions automatically. And those answers that come either give you a resonance or sometimes they'll be cacophonic, right? If you're thinking something that really doesn't belong. And then when you ask the questions that are most pertinent, and the answers flow, which are really simple because you got the answers already. You just have to ask the question in order for it to appear. You're going to have a resonance with that. You're going to have a feeling. You're going to have a sense of, oh, that's true for me.
I totally get what you're saying and the whole frequency thing for anybody who thinks that, oh, that's woo woo, no. And I've proven it to myself many, many, many times. Even just walking into the gym, before I walk into the gym, there's been some times when I say to myself, raise your frequency, raise your vibration, more positivity, raise it up, raise it up. In my mind, I'm just like, just
Sure.
walking in, and you pass people, right? I've noticed a difference, and I'm not like walking in smiling or crazy, anything like that. But I can feel people looking and just a positive acknowledgement, like, where you wouldn't see that. I wouldn't experience that if I just walked in. I'm just going to do my stuff. It all looks the same, but it's what's going on here.
Exactly. And the world's not going to change that much in the physical structure, right? When you're moving through your life. How you work with it will change tremendously based on your ability to go to that place that you were just talking about. And the science behind that is actually quite old in that, when you're in the past or in future, your aura, your energy field, your electromagnetic bubble that you walk around in is about 6 foot in diameter.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in the present, it exponentiates. I mean, it could be 50 feet in diameter or larger, depending on how well you are disciplined in being in that place all the time. Now, granted, that's a big effort. However, once you start practicing and you realize how much fun it is, it's a lot easier to be there. Because what do we want? We want, a couple, three things in life: to love and be loved, and to have fun.
Interesting that you say that, because and I didn't know that you could extend it from 6 feet, but those are the moments where you start realizing, like, things are working. Like, you just, you randomly see somebody at a Starbucks. You don't know them, but they're just like, wow, they're really nice. Well, how'd that happen? Because you're sending it out there. They're receiving it and they're responding to it. Now, granted, they could be somebody with a very low vibration, maybe having a bad day. We all have them, whatever. They might not pick up on it. And that could be the person where you've held the door for them and they're like, and they just walk by and they don't even say thank you or whatever it might be.
Right.
But I want to go back to one thing you said before, the feeling your heartbeat with your fingertips to get yourself out of here. Could you also do anything? For example, take an article of clothing, your sleeve, and just, and just rub the sleeve. Just, I'm going like this. I'm going like this. Just
Sure.
some
Any kind of physical activity that gets you out of your head and focusing. This is the whole idea behind chop wood, carry water. Right? When you're chopping wood, chop wood. When you're carrying water, carry water. And just be in that moment. Don't think outside of it. And then you have those reflections. You can. One of the cool things that I've noticed over my 40 some odd years of exploring this is that when you make eye contact with someone, there's something there for each of you. Explore it. Don't just glance and move on. If you make direct eye contact, step up. Say, hey, how you doing? Find a way to begin a conversation. If it's a compliment of what they look like, how what they've got on, the comment you just heard them made, something that acknowledges them. First off, you will see them just blossom, right? Because somebody cared enough to acknowledge them. And then you'll get that same energy back.
Yes.
Maybe something that the both of you have been looking for, because what you are seeking is also seeking you.
And it's unfortunate, Zen, that our society puts a block up from us sometimes doing that, because we don't want to feel like, oh, that's that creepy guy over there that just said, something about somebody's hair, But I also want to say, make it genuine and don't seek it out. Like, there's been times where, the girl at Starbucks.
No, it's not. It's a natural thing. Like I'm saying, you're not seeking it. It's seeking you. When you make that eye contact, that's random, right?
Yeah.
And yet, is it? Because when you're in that inner space and you're operating from that place, your outer space is going to change and reflect more of what's going on inside and how that can be shared with another, because that's pure love is pure shareable energy.
And you don't realize the after effects of it. Like, just if you see somebody like, I really like your hair. It like fits you, like whatever. Fast forward 5 minutes past that, you're driving in your car, and all of a sudden you have a flash in your head, and you're like, I feel good. That actually felt good to say that. I didn't think I didn't realize I would. I even think back to like 4 or 5 months ago. There was a woman in a little scooter navigating the supermarket. She was in the frozen food aisle, and she was trying to reach for something. And I saw, she had a little, challenge. I did, I must have leaped over 3 counters to get there for her, because I wanted to help her make sure, everything's cool. And You need anything else? Yeah. Could you please grab the split peas over? Yeah, sure. No problem. There you go. I never forgot it. Now I can't even remember her face, but I felt good that I got a chance to be there when she needed somebody there.
So what I hear you saying in answer to that last question I asked you about what you would change, right? It's the little things.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging that moment, stepping into it in that little seeming activity.
That little thing is a big thing.
Oh, yeah. This is one thing my dad, I feel so fortunate being adopted, orphan at birth and adopted by this wonderful Benefiel family, which actually means good fidelity. And so I set up. And both my adoptive parents and my birth parent, mother, would have named me Bruce. That's my given name. I've gone by Zen, as you know, for several decades now. So those kinds of things are just, the wonderful richness that we receive because we're in that moment. Dad, back to Dad's point, you do the little things and the big things will take care of themselves.
Say that one more time.
When you do the little things, the big things will take care of themselves.
Smart man.
Very.
That's the truth. We're out of time. I'm like, no, stop. Yeah, we're like overtime. And we only got to 2 out of 5 questions.
Yeah, so you can imagine what the other 3 might be and how your viewers would engage in their lives in a deeper, more meaningful way as a result.
This was great. And maybe next time we could hit up we'll recap these 2 and then do the 3, because I didn't think that we'd be opening the can of insight here by going through each one, and we did. For somebody that's looking for some answers or guidance from your 40 plus years of practicing this, how do we find you?
Well, first of all, BeTheDream.com. That's probably the best place. And, my one of my logos or one of my images there is Be the Dream. Yours. Right? We've all got one.
Yep.
Be daring and bold enough to engage your dream. And I can help you do that.
Awesome. And I do a radio show, play music, but every day, in addition to this, 500 other things. And I always end the radio show with these words. And I think it applies here to what we were talking about. Be kind to each other.
Absolutely.
That's it. So many of us aren't.
That's the little thing.
That's the little things. Zen, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.